Hello, Leroy here. Today we're going to talk about chord mode on the Verselab. But to do that, first we need to talk about chords. And to do that, we need to talk about intervals. This is going to be a long one today, so buckle up, get a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. You may need to watch it a couple times. But this is going to be great. We're going to talk about some of the errors and problems using chord mode as well when we get there. So to start, we just started a new project. It's just the default project. We're in instrument 1 in part of the sequencer part of the workflow in note mode over here, right over here, note mode. And I've selected the preset AXJP string. So again, to do that, if you're on instrument 1, you can just hit the value knob. You can go to preset, scroll down to syn pad, and in syn pad, it's down a couple. It's called AXJP strings. I chose this one just because it has a sustain, right? This one's also kind of fun because if you have a MIDI controller like I do off to the side here, if you have a MIDI controller that has aftertouch, it also has vibrato. Check this out. Now if I press down on the key after it's already playing, vibrato. Amazing. Anyway, so the first thing we need to talk about are intervals. If you haven't watched the video yet, below on scales and keys, watch that. That may help a little bit. So we're going to go to the keyboard. Just going to bring this on over here. So we're going to be in C major for right now, just all the white keys to make it easier to understand what's going on. So we're starting here on C. Remember that on the piano keyboard, there are groups of 2 black notes together and groups of 3 black notes together. C is going to be just to the left of this group of 2 black notes right here. The one thing about C that makes everybody use C all the time, beginning stuff especially, is it only uses the white keys. So we don't have to worry about these black keys and what they mean and that kind of stuff. So let's just start there. So in C major, the C major scale sounds like this. Also, apologies for not using my hands very well. The camera is like right in the way. I can't really get my hands on this as I normally would. I might be using 2 hands for some things that I normally wouldn't. Anyway, so C major, all the white keys, right? Fantastic. So we've talked before about what makes a scale, how the intervals work to make a scale. You have, in a major scale, you have the root note, which is the name of the key, say C major, right? It's C. You have a whole step from here to here, and then a whole step from here to here, a half step from here to here, and then a whole step, half step. That's the pattern of a major key or a major scale. So that's what we're looking at with those intervals. But once you're in a key, we also measure intervals in a different way. And let me tell you how that works. So let's start with the root note, which is C. If we go to the next note in the scale, this note, the one right next to it, right? This is D. Because we're in a major scale, this is going to be called a major second from here to here. This is the first, this is the second. It's a major second. A major second is always 2 half steps up from the root. So here's the root, you go up 1, 2. That's a major second. And that's the intervals we're going to be talking about in the beginning right now. In a major scale, there are 2 kinds of intervals. There are major intervals and there are perfect intervals. Let's talk about the perfect intervals first because those are the outliers. So when you have just a single note, that could be called a perfect unison. You will rarely use that, especially for one note. You may use it like if you have a choir or an orchestra all playing the same note. You could say that's a perfect unison. It's all the same note. Not very useful, doesn't get used very often. The other perfect intervals are the fourth. Notice again, C can be called 1 because we're in the key of C. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the fourth. The fourth is a perfect interval. So this is called a perfect fourth. The other perfect interval is the fifth. Again, this is the root, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. That's a perfect fifth. The last one is a perfect octave. That's kind of like perfect unison, doesn't use all that often, but here's the root. We go up to the same note. An octave is 8, so this is the root. This is the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. That's called a perfect octave. Anyway, so these perfect intervals, a perfect fifth, this interval is always, all of these intervals are always the same amount of distance between the first note and the second note. So a perfect fifth is 7 half steps, 7 semitones up from the root. So here's C. We go up 7 semitones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a perfect fifth. If you do that from any note, go up 7 from any note, you'll have a perfect fifth. What if we start here on whatever this note is, right? This is an A flat or a G sharp. Let's go up 7 from that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is a perfect fifth. What's magical about the perfect fifth in a scale, major, minor, Dorian, the perfect fifth is going to be the same interval on every single chord in one of these scales, except for one called diminished that we'll get to in a little while. So it's very stable. You'll hear that a lot in chords, like power chords or fifths. Fifths are everywhere. Fifth is a very, very stable interval. The fourth is also stable. Here's the fourth. But the fourth can change depending on where you are in the scale. Anyway, so those are the perfect intervals. Let's talk about all of the other intervals. Again, in a major scale, all of the other intervals are going to be a major interval. So here's the root, C. That's 1. This is 2. The D. This is a major second. Go up to the third. This is a major third. Perfect fourth, which we discussed. Perfect fifth. Major sixth. Major seventh. Perfect octave. Okay, that may be a little bit confusing. I understand. There are a couple other things we need to talk about, though, because we can change these intervals to be something else. So if you have, say, a perfect interval, if you move it down 1 half step, so here's our G, if we move it down to G flat, that's now called a diminished fifth. It goes from perfect to diminished if you move a half step. If you move a half step up on a perfect interval, it makes it augmented. So this is a perfect fifth. If you move it up a half step from here to here, now it's an augmented fifth. Okay? That's how perfect intervals work. From the perfect interval, you have the fourth and the fifth mostly. If you go down a half step, it's now diminished. If you go up a half step, it's augmented. The thing you use more often, you'll rarely see an augmented interval, by the way. That doesn't happen all that often. You will occasionally see diminished, and usually it's the fifth. I've never ever seen a diminished fourth. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but a diminished fourth, if you just take a fourth and move it down a half step, that's a third. You're going to have problems with music notation if you try to call that a diminished fourth. You probably could. I mean, music is a big, vast place, but I've never seen that called a diminished fourth. But you will see occasionally a diminished fifth, and we will see that very soon. So the other interval, the most important things you can do are major and minor. You hear about major and minor chords all the time, right? So here we have this major third. Here's your root, second, third, and we're in our major key, so this is a major third. And if we count up the half steps, you're going to find that a major third is 4 semitones or 4 half steps up from the root. So here's our root. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 half steps up, 4 half steps up, 4 semitones. That is a major third, okay? Always, always, always. If you have any major interval, if you move it down a half step, it's a minor interval. So here's a major third. If you go from here to this black note down a half step to the next nearest note, it's a minor third. Major third, minor third. This is the only difference between a major chord and a minor chord is this note right here, this little half step. I'll show you right now. So how do we make chords? We've looked at these intervals very simply. We've looked at how to count up intervals. If you want this note, right? If you want this interval, let's count it up. So we're at the root, we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This interval, whatever this is, it's up 9 half steps. This, by the way, is a major sixth. See, we're at the root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anyway, so you could make that a minor sixth again by just moving it down a half step. That's a minor sixth. It's also, by the way, an augmented fifth. Anyway, so how do we make chords? We've looked at the intervals. Let's learn what a chord is, how we make them. So in every key, in Western theory, we're just going to look at triads right now. There are sevenths and ninths and all kinds of crazy things, add chords and sus chords. We're just looking at triads right now. So what you do is you take a note, you skip a note in the scale. So we're going to skip this D and then do the next note, and then skip a note. We're going to skip this one and do the next note. That's what's called a triad. It's 3 notes. And that's how we make all the chords. If we go up in a different note on the scale, let's take this note. This is the third note in the scale of C, right? Take that note, we skip the next one, play the third, skip this one, play the fifth. That's how the chords work. Easy peasy. So we can make one chord on every portion of this scale. So watch, we'll start from the root. Let's go to the second. We just move everything up. Then the third, and the fourth, fifth, sixth, and the seventh. We have 7 notes, we have 7 chords. They can be called, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the 1 chord. Go up to the 4th and start a chord. This is the 4 chord. Go up 1 more, this is the 5 chord. And by the way, in a major key, those are the most common chords you're going to use, the 1, 4, and the 5, and usually maybe throw in the 6, something like this. 1, 5, 6, 4. Or 6, 4, 5, 1. All right, so that is the basics of how chords work, but you should also know that in every major scale, every minor scale, every Dorian scale, every Phrygian scale, every mode, there are only 7 chords, and you have the same types of chords. You have 3 major chords, 3 minor chords, and 1 diminished chord. So again, let's look at what these chords are. So this interval, remember we have a major third here, right? So when we make this chord, the chord on the 1, the C major in this case, this is a major chord because it'll always have a perfect fifth. All of these chords, the major minor chords will have a perfect fifth, this interval here, right? It's the +7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, perfect fifth. And then we'll have a third. So the third here is a major third because it fits in the major scale from here. And again, a major third is up 4 from the root. Here's the root, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Major third and the fifth. That's a major chord. A minor chord, how do we make a minor third? This is a major third. To make a minor third, we lower the third by a half step. So we take this and move it to here. That's a minor chord. Major chord, minor chord. All we're doing is moving this one single note. Everything else stays the same. And if you play these chords in order in the key, the chords come out in specific orders. So in a major key, it'll be a major chord. The second will be a minor chord, then a minor chord, major chord, minor chord, and then a diminished chord. All the time. And the order is going to be different in minor scale and in a Dorian scale, etc. But you're always going to have 3 major chords, 3 minor chords, and 1 diminished chord. We've talked about major and minor. What the heck is a diminished chord? The diminished chord happens naturally on the 7th degree of the scale. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's the note right before you come back to the octave, back to the root. So here's the B down in octaves so we can see it better. This is the B. This is the 7th. If we make a chord on that, it sounds really dark. Listen. We don't use this chord all that often, a lot more in like jazz or gospel, but in just contemporary music, pop, EDM, doesn't get used all that often because it's very difficult to work with, very dark, and it typically leads specifically to the 1. Listen, if I play this chord, it wants to resolve and it wants to go to here. It always wants to move up to the 1. It's the 7 chord wants to go up to the 8, to the 1. So what is a diminished chord? So we looked at a major, and we saw that to make a minor chord, you just take the third and you make it from a minor third to a major third to a minor third. You move it a half step. Major third, minor third, right? Easy enough. A diminished chord, after you have a minor chord, takes the 5th and moves it down a half step, makes it a diminished 5th. I like to think of this diminished chord as like a super minor chord, right? It's really, really minor. So we have in a major chord, we have a major third here, and then a minor third above it, right? Major third, minor third. Major third, remember, is 4 half steps up, so we're here, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But then from here to here, it's only 3 half steps. Here's the note we start from, 1, 2, 3. That's a minor third. Major third and a minor third. That's a major chord. A minor chord is a minor third, so we go up 1, 2, 3, right? That's a minor chord, but then from here to here, it's major. It's a major interval. Not chord, major interval, sorry. So here's the note we're starting from, plus 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a major interval. So a major chord is a major third followed by a minor third. A minor chord is a minor third followed by a major third. The diminished chord, you take the minor chord that you already have, here's the minor chord, and then you move the fifth, here's the fifth, you move the fifth down another half step. So you have a minor interval and then another minor interval. And look at how this seventh lines up. The B, which is the seventh chord, is this a minor interval? Let's count it up. Here's the first note. We go up 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's a minor interval. Then we go from here to here. What kind of interval is that? So we start from here. 1, 2, 3. Also a minor interval. So this is a diminished chord because it's a minor interval and then another minor interval. A major chord, again, major interval followed by a minor interval. A minor chord is a minor interval followed by a major interval. And a diminished chord is a minor interval followed by a minor interval. So major, minor, diminished. Okay, kind of understand? The order again of these chords, if you just play them in the key, is going to be major. You have C major, that's the one chord in C major. D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished. So what if we're here? What if we're on D? This is D minor. This is the second chord. It's D minor. What if we want to make this major? What do? We take the third and move it up a half step. D minor, D major. Okay? I know that's probably kind of complicated. Go over it a couple of times. You will understand. It's most easy in C major because it's just the white keys that we're using. But again, every scale you're using, as long as it's a scale with, the regular sharps and flats, it'll have 3 major chords, 3 minor chords, 1 diminished chord. Typically, if you're playing in a major key, you're going to play more major chords than minor chords. Again, your mileage may vary. That's not a hard and fast rule. But in minor keys, you'll typically play more minor. For instance, in A minor uses all the white keys. A minor would start on A. Now, if we build the chords up in A minor with all the white keys, you'll start with a minor chord, then diminished, then major, then minor, then minor, then major, then major, then back to the octave, the 1, which is minor. You still have 3 minor chords, 3 major chords, and 1 diminished chord. It starts at a different place in the scale, because you'll notice in C major, it starts at C and it's all the white notes. A minor, you move everything down a third to A minor, down a minor third, and now you're just starting the same scale with the same notes at a different place. And you can do interesting things to that too. Like if you can play in a major and a minor scale, you can make a simple melody like right? But if you know how to do major and minor things, you can also then just take the same thing in the same scale, C, starting in C, but do C minor. You can make that same thing minor just with a quick change. Watch this. Okay, again, that's a little more advanced than we need to go into today. We're already running long. Now it's time to look at chord mode and how these things relate to chord mode on the Verselab. Let's move this over to the Verselab. Whoomp. Sorry, hope I didn't make you sick with that. All right, so we're back in the Verselab. If you wanted to go into a scale, say you want to go to C major, right? Edit note, look at my video on that if you haven't seen the video on keys and scales. We're in the key of C. Let's go to C major instead of chromatic, right? So here's C major, same things on the piano. Now all of these notes are in the scale. So if you just play a note and then skip a note, so you play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note. That's a chord, that's your 1 chord, that's C major. If you go up, that's D minor. If you go up again, that's E minor. You can go all the way up the scale making chords that way in this. If you're in chromatic mode, it's a little more difficult because you have to understand where the notes are. You could make the same chords. There's C major. There's a... there we go, D minor, right? It becomes a little more difficult in the chromatic scale because the notes are all over the place and you have all the sharps and flats and stuff. Anyway, let's look at chord mode and see how this works with these things. So you go to Shift and hit Style. Shift and Style is chord mode. Remember, the Shift button has a little box around it, this little clear box. Everything with a clear box around it, like chord mode, is what comes into effect when you hold down shift and push that. So we push shift, hold down shift, push style. We're now in chord mode. Here's what's interesting about chord mode. Up top here, these are the major triads, the major chords from a major scale in order. So here's C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and then C major again, an octave up. Again, just like on here. Same chords. And then down at the bottom, by default, it's the minor chords of that same scale, so or the same key. So this is the chords in order in C minor. So check this out. Sorry, again, I'm having problems playing right now. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to know. If you're looking to do major chords, right here. Here's the 1 chord, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or 1. 8 and 1 are the same. Down here's the minor. If you're in a minor scale, it's chord 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Easy peasy. So if you want to play, if someone says, hey, let's play a 1, 1, 5, 6, 4 progression. Okay, 1, 5, 6, 4. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Or they say, hey, let's play a 6, 5, 4, 1. Okay? 6, 5, 4, 1. Easy peasy. Now, these are in root position, and they're only triads. They only have 3 notes, so they can be a little limiting, but we don't have time to get into that right now. So how does this actually work? I'm going to hit exit over here to get out of the note settings we were in before. Hit edit. And then press a pad. For instance, this one. This one is the C major. It's the first chord in the major scale. Notice over here on the screen, we have a lot of information. Root, note 1, note 2, and there's a little arrow here. Don't forget this arrow. This means you can scroll the value knob and go over another screen. Note 3, and then color. So you can change the colors of these pads to line up to what you need to remind yourself what that chord is if you make a special chord. And you can also add a 4th note, which is interesting. By default, they're just triads. They're just 3 notes. They're just the root position, root, 3rd, 5th. But here's something to note. By default, this is C major. This is the major chord of the key you're in. So this is a major chord. Notice it says root plus 4 plus 7. Wait. That sounds familiar. Root plus 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 4 plus 7. 5, 6, 7. That's C major. That's a major chord. That's what we just learned. That's what this is playing by default. And this is the formula for a, sorry, camera's getting a little weird. This is the formula for a major chord. If you put this in, start on any note. If you need a B major chord, start this at B, and the 4 is the octave, by the way. Start this at a B, and then do plus 4, plus 7. That's a major chord. If you want a minor chord, it's whatever the root note is, plus 3, plus 7. So watch. Here's Here's the second chord in C major. This is D minor. Notice it starts on D, and then it says plus 3, plus 7. Again, plus 4 plus 7, plus 3 plus 7. The only difference is this, the third. It's going from a major third to a minor third. What if we go to the diminished chord, the 7 chord that we hardly ever use? Remember, the 7 chord is a minor chord, but we also flat the 5th, right? So a diminished chord should be the root plus 3 plus 6. Let's see what it is. Root plus 3 plus 6. If you want a diminished chord, that's the formula. It's asking for the intervals. You're entering in the intervals in semitones or half steps. So you have the root. Here's the second note, how far up it is. Again, let's build this chord. Let's build this chord in the chromatic pad on the Verselab. So again, this starts at C, goes up 4, then up 7. So go back to note mode. Oops, I'm over here pushing note. So we go up plus. Oops, hold on, I messed that up. There we go. Okay. Note mode, it's going to be the root plus 4 plus 7. Root plus 4. It's displaying from the pads now, as if I'm playing the pad. See, this is like as if I'm playing the C major pad up on the chord mode. This is as if it's C minor. Anyway, so the major one is plus 4. It's plus 4 plus 7. So here's the root plus 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then plus 7. 5, 6, 7. That's a C major chord. And if we go back into chord mode, listen to the chord. Same chord. Same chord. That is all it's doing. So that is how you use chord mode. And again, don't forget, you can do more than one note. You can do more than 3. You can do 4 notes on a pad. That is a limitation. We should be able to do more. We can't. You can also change the color. So if you want to make this, yellow and make the one above it yellow, so you can be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play both these together. I've made this chord so I can play them both together. So now that they're both yellow, I know that I'm playing them both together. This one's gonna be, blue or something. These two will be, I don't know, orange. So you're like, oh yeah, okay, so I made it so I can play these chords together, or these pads together. This is its own chord. This is its own chord. You play these together. That's what the colors are for. Also, it should be noted, you can play several notes together. So if you want to make like 7 chords, that's a major 7. Here's a dominant 7. Here's a minor 7. Anyway, that goes beyond what we're talking about today, but you can play more than one pad at a time to make different sounds. Now, how do we enter these things in? The best way is in live mode. So if you just hit record, and then you hit play, I hit record over here, and then I'm going to hit play. Right, then it plays it back, it records them, and if you hit edit and hit one of the steps that you recorded, you can see the notes are in there. It has 3 notes, right? Oops, sorry. 3 notes, and it says what they are, G, B, and D. Fantastic. The issue is, if I'm going to clear this out, I'm going to push clear. I'm going to hold just hit clear, and then the sequence button to clear the steps down here. If you just say hold a chord and push a step, you can also record it that way. Hold on, what did I do? Okay, so you hold. What am I doing? Oh, sorry, I have to hit exit over here. I was in the menu. So if you hold a chord and then hit the step, it'll also record it. The downside with that is, by default, if you hit edit and hit the step, the length is 0.8. It's not even a single step. So it's very short. It's easier to do one note at a time. And you have problems if you try and do several pads at the same time. If you record that in step sequencing mode, you're going to have issues, which I'm not going to get into now because this is already running long. But try and record those live if you can. I hope that helped a little bit. I know it's light on some details. We'll get into more details later. We'll probably get into 7th chords, 9th chords, all that stuff. We'll get into creating more chords and inversions. But for now, you have at least an idea of how the chord mode works here. Down here, these are the chords from the major scale, and these are the ones from the minor scale. There's one big thing, too, we need to look at. I'm sorry, I completely forgot. There's an error in here. So we're in C major now, right? So check this out. That's C major, right? If we go back to note mode, C major, we're starting in C. If we go edit, note, we can see that we're in the key of C. If we change it to C major, for instance, there we go, C major, we can see, right, 1, 3, 5, that's a C major chord, and note mode is playing C major. What if we edit note mode, and then we say, you know what, let's go to F. Okay, whoops, go this way to F. So now an F major chord would be like this, right? And check it out on the pads here. Yes, F major. If you go to chord mode, F major, perfect. Everything's working as it should, right? Except if you hit edit and then hit the chord, it still says the root is C. So if you wanted to make this a G major chord, so here's a G major chord, you can't just move this to G. That's not the same chord. So here's G. This is not G. That's much higher. It plays the chord correctly as it should in the scale and the key, but it doesn't change the root note. So if you wanted to go up from F, we're in F now, even though it says C, if we want to go to G, that's up 1 step. So we have to go up 1 step from C, that's D. So now if we play an F major chord, now this can play an F major chord. Or G, sorry, we went from F to G. So G major, G major, even though it says it's D. This is another reason I recommend you work in the key of C on this device. Especially if you're gonna use chord mode, it gets confusing really fast because this is in error. This is incorrect. It shouldn't say C no matter what key you're in. It's playing an F major chord right now. Again, here's an F major chord. it's playing an F major chord because we're in the key of F major, but it's listing it as C. That's the problem. It's playing the right thing, listing the wrong thing. So if you want to use chord mode, I do recommend you stay in C to make your chords, but that's maybe a topic for another time. Anyway, I hope this has been useful. Thank you for being here. There are more videos coming. Hopefully, there have been some problems in my life recently. There's a video about that down below. It's possible I may not be able to make videos in the near future, may not even be able to keep my Verselab, so I'll make videos for as long as I can. We have so much more to cover. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you learned something. Definitely go back and watch it again. Take notes if you need to. This stuff is difficult in the beginning. Don't get discouraged because it's difficult. It is difficult in the beginning, but you will pick it up just like anything else. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Hope you learned something. I hope you go out and make something interesting today. Have a great one. Bye, guys.